This morning I just want to share with you something that, a couple of verses that when I first started to come into the church, I remember reading these verses and I turned to my wife and it was in Genesis 6. And I remember saying to her, do you know that God was going to destroy man and everything on the earth? Her obvious reaction was, well, isn't that the reason for the flood? But it is a verse that still haunts me. As we look through the Bible says, remember the days of Noah, and to go back to have a look at the days of Noah. But really, is it going back to have a look at what was happening at the times? In Matthew it points out what we should be looking at, the things that will be happening towards the end of time. But the Bible also says to go back to the days of Noah and see what was happening then. But is it to have a look at the time of what was happening with Noah? Is it to actually see who Noah was? Because really, has the world changed since Noah? Over a period of time, even before Noah, people murdered. People committed adultery. People got involved with sorcery. All these things people were doing. Since Noah, has anything changed? So why do we need to go back to look at Noah? What is it about that chapter that we should be looking at or looking for? 5 times I started this sermon and 5 times I've scratched it out and restarted again. Even till last night, I was trying to grasp what God was trying to say to us. And only this morning coming here, the penny seemed to drop for me. You may already know the reason why, but I'm going to share with you what God spoke to me this morning. Only 10 generations passed from the time of Adam to the time of Noah. Only 10. How many more generations have passed from Noah to this present time? And how many more generations will pass before Jesus comes to take us home? In 2 Timothy, if I could ask you to turn to 2 Timothy in chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3, but it says, but know this, that in the last days perilous times will come. Even that word perilous, it doesn't say there's going to be easy, but the word peril means something more significant. For men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unfaithful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Nothing has really changed from the time of Noah till this present time. But in verse 6 it says, for of this sort are those who creep into households and make captives of gullible women, loaded down with sins, led away by various lusts, also learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Or in 2 Timothy chapter 4, in verses 3 to 5, it says, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears. They will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables. But you be watchful in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. So what is God trying to say to us? As I said, it was really in chapter 6 that really made me ponder just as I was coming into the church. From verse 5 in Genesis chapter 6, it says, "Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord." This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. So what was different? Or what will that thing be that differentiates what has been happening since Noah till the end of time? In verse 5 it says, "Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." What makes it so different then to now? The thoughts of man were evil continually. We can look at the times and say, yes, we are moving closer and closer to the end of time. There was only something that came across my emails only a few weeks ago, and I sent it out, and it came back to me a little bit more, with a little bit more exposure. And that's the beauty sometimes of the internet. That when you hear of something, you're able to send it out to people, and people will look a little bit further, and they'll share that back. And for those who may not know, I share with you something that points closer towards the end of time. In America, Monday week ago, a bill was passed through the Senate. It's called the S510 bill. What is this bill? It is now illegal in the United States to grow vegetables in your own backyard. It is illegal to sell vegetables out the front of your house, farm, or whatever. And this all comes under what they call the Food Safety Act. What does that mean for us? Since I've been in the church, people have said in the end time we should go out and start growing our own vegetables. We need to be self-sufficient in our backyards. The devil had a plan, and it's called the S510 bill. It will become illegal to grow your own vegetables. And it's shrouded around this thing of food safety, where if you grow them in your own backyard, how can the government ensure the safety of those who eat your vegetables? If you sell them from the front yard of your home, how can they be assured that these vegetables are safe? To ensure the safety of people, they will make it illegal for people to grow and sell from their backyard. It seems as if we need that protection. But as we look towards the end of time, it has a more sinister approach. More and more, we will have to become more reliable on God and God alone. We cannot become reliable on what we grow in our backyard. We cannot become reliable upon ourselves. The closer we get to the end of time, the more we need to be relying on God. If you want to fully understand what that bill is, Google it. It's on YouTube, and I'm sure if Angelo's still around, he's done a little bit more research than I did, and he can probably fill you in a bit more. But just have a look at this bill, and in America it caused a great stir. But really, in the scheme of things, it's just a ripple. Things that happen in America seem to flow around the world, and sooner or later it will come here. That when we talk of, in Genesis 6, we're talking about the thoughts of men, not what is going to happen, but what man is actually thinking. The actions of man can only come from the way a man thinks. Have we got that straight? The actions of a person can only come from the way they think, from their thoughts. And as we go through this, you may say, where are we heading? Or where are we going? But it'll all start to fall in place by the time we get to the end of the sermon. If I ask you to turn to Jeremiah chapter 4 and verse 14. Jeremiah chapter 4 and verse 14, it says, O Jerusalem, wash your heart from wickedness, that you may be saved. How long shall your evil thoughts lodge with you? Or in Jeremiah 6 and verse 19, it says, Hear, O earth, behold, I will certainly bring calamity on this people, the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not heeded my words nor my law, but rejected it. And if we would turn to Matthew 15 and verse 19. Actually, if we go back to verse 18, it says, But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and they defile a man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, idolatries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. So it wasn't the actions, it wasn't the things that were about to happen that God was looking at. He was looking at the heart of man. In Genesis 6 and verses 6 to 7, And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. This is the verse that really struck me. That man had become so bad, that God was so grieved, he was so hurt by his own creation, that he saw fit to destroy man from the face of the earth. But not only to destroy man, but to destroy every single living thing on the earth. But why destroy every single living thing? If we go down to verse 11, it says, The earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. I don't think the beasts corrupted themselves. I think man at that time, what man was doing with animals, what man had done to the earth itself, everything had become an abomination to God. That's why God saw fit to not only destroy man, but wipe the earth clean. When I think of how, I really try to think of how God felt at that time. And the words say that God was grieved to his heart. People say that God has no heart. This says that God was grieved to his heart. If God was so grieved then, how will God be so grieved when the earth has to be cleansed once more? How often is God grieved every day that man continues to turn his back upon God? In Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 20, Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 20. For there is not a just man on the earth who does good and does not sin. Or Proverbs 20 and verse 9. Proverbs 20 verse 9 says, who can say, I have made my heart clean, I am pure from my sin? Really, just looking at those verses, what hope do we have? We think that we have the ability to better ourselves. Not only in this world, but spiritually as well. We believe that we don't need God. There is a whole world out there that says that God does not exist. Even within our church, we struggle with what God has been trying to say to us. We make up our own rules. We make up our own regulations. We twist things around to suit our own causes. But is our God a God that just turns his back on us? Why did he look at Noah? What did he see in Noah that was so different? But as we go through the Bible, each and every chapter, every verse points towards a gracious God. But also within each chapter, it also shows that the sin of man. How every time we turn our back on God. As we look at Exodus chapter 32 and verse 9. We have the people of God, they've come out of Egypt. Moses is up on the mount. And as we look at verse 9, it says, and the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and indeed it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, and I will make of you a great nation. Once again, we see God about to wipe a people off the face of the earth. These were his chosen people, led out of Egypt. He then turns to Moses and says, I will make a people out of you. The same promise that was given to Noah, to Abraham, now to Moses. I will wipe these people out and we will start afresh with you. Then Moses, in verse 11, pleaded with the Lord, his God, and said, Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians speak and say, he brought them out to harm them, to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath and relent from this harm to your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. So the Lord relented from the harm which he said he would do to his people. Moses interceded for that group of people. Noah was doing exactly the same thing all the while he built the ark. He prayed to God continually. He interceded for that race of people daily. who knows what people that Moses reached and may have been put to sleep before the flood. The Bible doesn't mention that. But one thing Noah did continually was he prayed and he served God while building the ark. He never gave up on the people. There's a message there for us for this day, that even though things we know will not be good, the outcome for this world is not a good outcome. The outcome for God's people is a better outcome. But are we prepared to stand up for God and share what we know, what lies ahead? But the thing was, even Moses needed to be reminded of this intercession. For as we look down to verse 22, it says, "So Aaron said, 'Do not let the anger of my Lord become hot.'" He's talking to Moses. Moses has come down. He's seen the people dancing around the golden calf, and now he is angry. And he wants a bit of vengeance himself. "You know the people, that they are set on evil. For they said to me, 'Make us gods that shall go before us.' As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And I said to them, 'Whoever has any gold, let them break it off.' So they gave it to me, and I cast it into the fire, and this calf came out." So now we have Aaron interceding on behalf of the people. But really, even in regards to his intercession, he's lying. He doesn't tell the full truth. Because as we read earlier, Aaron asked for the people to bring their gold and silver. And it says that Aaron fashioned the golden calf. But in verse 24 it says, "And I said to them, 'Whoever has any gold, let them break it off.' So they gave it to me, and I cast it into the fire, and this calf came out." A miracle happened with the gold. All I did, Moses, was throw it in, and the golden calf just walked out of the fire itself. Even we can intercede on behalf of people and really even twist the truth when we are interceding. It's something that we find easy to do. If we can twist the truth just a little bit in order to suit our own thoughts of what is happening. In 2 Chronicles, in verse 33, Second Chronicles chapter 33 and verse 9. And in this chapter it talks of a king called Manasseh. And Manasseh did a whole heap of bad things. He had altars to all different gods. But in verse 9 it says, "So Manasseh seduced Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to do more evil than the nations whom the Lord had destroyed before the children of Israel." That's a pretty big thing to have on your resume. I am the one who did more evil than all the people that God has just destroyed up to this point. And just reading that, you would think God is going to smite this man who will just destroy him utterly. But in verse 10 it says, "And the Lord spoke to Manasseh and his people, but they would not listen. Therefore the Lord brought upon them the captains of the army of the king of Assyria, who took Manasseh with hooks, bound him with a bronze fetters, and carried him off to Babylon. Now when he was in affliction, he implored the Lord his God and humbled himself greatly before the God of his fathers, and prayed to him, and he received his entreaty heard his supplication, and brought him back to Jerusalem into his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that the Lord was God. It goes on, after this, he destroyed all those pagan idols, the temples, and the people turned back to God. What was so different to this man, to what is going to happen into the future, to what happened at Noah's time? It said that all the thoughts were evil continually. This man was evil, but his thoughts turned to God. And as he turned to God, a whole people turned to God. But why did things change? It wasn't... when we go just a little bit further into verse 21, it says that his son was 22 years of old when he became king, and he reigned 2 years. But he did evil in the sight of the Lord, as his father had done. For Amon sacrificed to all the carved images which his father Manasseh had made, and served them. Even the son didn't learn from what the father had gone through. God is a God of grace. When he heard a man's plea that came from his heart, God turned to him and heard his prayers. In this end time, we need to be praying not only for ourselves, but we need to be looking at who we are. Where are our thoughts? Not what our actions are doing, but where are our thoughts? As we go back to chapter 6 in Genesis, and we look at verse 8, it says, "But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord." This grace is divine favour. When God looked at Noah, he looked at him with divine favour. He saw in Noah something that he could not see in any other person upon the earth. You see a man here that God asked to build an ark. Had it ever rained? It had never rained before. Noah had never seen rain. Did Noah say, hang on a sec, what is this thing that I need to build? Why do I need to build it? And rain, what is rain? But Noah just set foot and started doing as God asked. Never once did he question what God was asking him to do. Not once did he get to the point where it took him over 100 years, even preaching. We don't know how long it actually took him to build the ark, but it says he preached for 120 years. To build the ark may have taken a little bit longer, but during that time he was continually telling the people about what was about to happen and to turn back to God. We only have a short time span in which to preach that message to the world. But Noah never questioned once. The ridicule that he would have undergone during that time would have been insurmountable. To have people out the front where he lived, people where he was working on the ark, continually laughing, casting dispersions upon his God, telling him that he was a fool. But Noah never questioned what God had asked him to do. God found grace in Noah, for Noah believed entirely in God. If we look at Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 16, if Noah found favour with God, are we able to find that same favour? In Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 16. But now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for you. God is not ashamed to say that he is our God. Are we ashamed to say that he is our God? Can we be like Noah? Can we stand up to the ridicule that is about to come and sometimes even happens today? People are dying around the world for standing up to God. They are being thrown into prisons for standing up for God, for standing for a faith and a belief that says that there is only one true God. And that God is the God of this universe. He is our God. And he is the same God who will come to take us home. In Luke 1 and verse 30. Luke 1 verse 30, then the angel said to her, do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favour with God. So was Mary and Noah any different to us? Were they born without sin? The Bible says that every man has sinned. Everyone is born of sin. But Mary found favour with God. In Luke chapter 2 and verse 52, it says, and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favour with God and men. So even Jesus grew in favour with God. How is our life growing? When God looks at us, will he look at us in the same way that he looked and saw Noah? Will he look at us and see the same person as when he looked at Mary? Will he look at us and see the same person as he saw in his own son? Each one of us needs to have a look at where we are today. For where we are today, we may not want to be there as we head towards the end of time. In Proverbs 3 and verse 4, it says, and so find favour and high esteem in the sight of God and man. Jesus found favour with God and men. God is asking us the same thing. We need to find favour not only in the sight of God, but in the sight of man. People are watching what we do and who we are. Will they see God in us? And in Proverbs 12 and verse 2, It says, a good man obtains favour from the Lord, but a man of wicked intentions or wicked thoughts he will condemn. But in verse 9, in chapter 6 of Genesis, it says that Noah walked with God. What is it to walk with God? To be that close to God that you can say you are walking with Him. If I could ask you to turn your Bibles to 1 Kings, and the answer lies in chapter 8. First Kings chapter 8 and verses 58 to 61. First Kings chapter 8 verse 58. That he may incline our hearts to himself, to walk in all his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments which he commanded our fathers. And may these words of mine, with which I have made supplication before the Lord, be near the Lord our God day and night, that he may maintain the cause of his servant and the cause of his people Israel, as each day may require, that all the peoples of the earth may know that the Lord is God. There is no other. Let your heart therefore be loyal to the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes and keep his commandments as at this day. That's what it is to walk with God, to keep the commandments of God, to keep the laws of God. People will see it. When we are taken home, or if God was to look down on us now, I think to myself, if he looked down at me and he said, Shane, are you walking with me? I don't know whether I could say it the same as what he did when he looked at Noah. As I look at my own life, I know that I need to be making changes. And it's only through the grace of God that he extends my life in order that I may come closer to him and understand exactly what he is, who he is, and what he has in store for me. I want to walk with God. I want to be known as a person who walked with God. We read it, we see it, we understand it, but we find it awfully hard to do. The devil does not want us to walk with God. In Amos 3 and verse 3 it says, "Can two walk together unless they are agreed?" In Psalm 119 and verse 3, "They also do no iniquity, they walk in his ways." Psalm 81 and verse 13, "Oh, that my people may listen to me, that Israel would walk in my ways." God is pleading with us, walk in my ways. Keep my commandments. The thoughts that you have are not my thoughts. They will destroy you. They will condemn you. It's not looking at what is going to happen that will condemn us. We can condemn ourselves. The things in Matthew point towards things that will happen as we move closer to the second coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. They are warning signs. But as we look back to Noah, Noah's life is a warning sign, and what was happening at that time is a warning sign to us for our own lives. The difference between what is happening between the end time and Noah is one thing, that at this present time men's thoughts are not continually evil. There is still a chance that we can go out and spread the word of God. But the door is slowly closing. When a time will come when their ears will not hear the voice of God. When the thoughts of men then become continually evil, as in Noah's time, God will be left with no other choice than to destroy what he created. Will he do it in pleasure? Or will he be the same God as in Noah's time, who was grieved to his heart? That is the God he is extending grace not only to you and me, but to the entire world. And he is pleading, come back before it's too late. That's the message we need to be taking to people. That's the message for this Christmas. That God came, Jesus came in the form of man to save each and every one of us. That's the message that we need to be taking to the people. And in Luke 17 and verse 33, whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it. What did the ark represent? I just want to close with just a couple of thoughts. What did the ark represent? The ark represented safety. Safety for Noah. And the grace that God saw in Noah, he extended to his family. For he said, Noah, you're righteous, and because of that, bring your family onto the ark as well. He presented safety. They sat in that ark for 7 days before it rained. From the day it rained to nearly the day that they hopped out of the ark was nearly a year they spent on an ark. It's a long time. Long time to be asking questions. But Noah didn't ask questions. He just believed in God. And when he stepped out, it says that God blessed him and he blessed his family. What happened after that's another sad story. But at that time, God blessed him and blessed his family. Jesus is our ark. We can only find safety in Jesus. When the time of trouble comes, we can only rely on God. God is the only person we can rely on to keep us safe. Probation will close like the door to the ark. Once that door closes, no one will enter in. The books of probation will close. As with the ark, destruction will start to come, and only those who abide in God will be saved. To me, that was the message that God wanted for me, just in those small few verses in Genesis chapter 6. In Genesis chapter 7, I'll just close. Genesis chapter 7, and closing with in chapter 7 and verse 1. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation." I hope God says that to each and every one of you as I pray that He will say it to me also. May God bless each and every one of you. And may we continue to look for answers in the Bible. Just don't read through it. Look for reasons why God is trying to talk to us. For time is short. The truth is there, and it's the truth that'll set you free. In closing, we're going to sing hymn number 330, Take My Life and Let It Be.